What's up, everyone? This is Adam, and should you buy Anthem? Now, if I spend about a week to say playing this game, I didn't buy it on February 15th through Origin Early Access, either through Xbox One or through PC. I instead got it on the 22nd. And from my experience, I had a much easier time with it than those who were early adapters to the game. A lot of people expressed incredible disheartening experiences because of the massive technical problems. I would say the February 15th version of the game was like an early access period, and the 22nd was the full game release. But nevertheless, I actually had a lot of fun with Anthem within the first 3 hours. The idea of traveling this incredible world, I mean, look at this. It's beautiful. It's full of these incredible moments where you could dive underwater, leap into the air, and take into the air is extraordinary. It's so amazing. You just dive into the air and fly off, and the environments are designed to complement this system. Anthem has all these aspects that make it seem like it should be an extraordinary game. But it's not. That's the problem. It's just not a good game. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of the actual essence that makes a video game good. Much of the game is repetitive tasks where you just kill the same enemies over and over again. And when you do find something interesting, like there's this Titan boss, an amazing boss battle between this legendary creature that looks like the Berserker from Gears of War, but nevertheless it requires teamwork and it requires finesse to defeat these things. But once you fight them one time, you fight them 12 more times. And every elite grade enemy, with the exception of two bosses, which is a giant type of insect, and another is the final boss, they're just variations of the same enemy with increased health and more heavier damage attacks. And much of the game is this hot and cold minigame, which you're seeing right on screen right now, where you locate specific items, collect them, fly to your next objective, and either kill enemies, defend a control point, or play hot and cold again. And it's such a shame. Like, this incredible world is teeming with activities, but there's always the same thing over and over. And after you go through this world again and again to complete these objectives, even the world itself loses its luster. Which is a shame because it's one of the best worlds BioWare has ever created. It's full of flora, aquatic life, mammals that are walking on the surface. Like, in its core, this world should be great. But because of this repetition, it just eventually loses every sense of wonder that it initially had. And at the core of Anthem, there should be this type of desire to collect loot. The problem is, the loot is very generic. Like, there is no cosmetic difference between the common assault rifle and the masterwork assault rifle, or any variation of those types of weapons. With the exception of some little gold plating, it all looks the same. Considering that games like Borderlands, the original Borderlands that came out in 2009, had more weapon variety than this entire game put together, is shocking. I mean, it's not like BioWare is unaware of this. They are some of the most acclaimed companies in the video game industry. They've created large amounts of RPGs, and they should have known that fans would be annoyed by this. We like to see variations within the weapons' looks, not just the statistics, which the statistics are also messed up. But the way they look, a masterwork weapon, which is the most powerful variation of a weapon, should look different from a regular weapon. It just should. And if you don't put in the extra effort, people are going to be annoyed. It's like if you got the Ultima weapon from Final Fantasy VII and it looked like the Buster Sword. On top of it, the Javelin customization is also severely limited. You get about 1 to 2 emotes or options available to you, and most of it's locked behind this changing purchasable store. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. If you go through the store, it says you can purchase this right now. Think the Fortnite store where things are constantly changing, but unlike Fortnite, you have to pay in order to play this game. On top of it, if you look back at the live streams, you can see that there were a lot of customizable options available, but for some reason they're not in the full release of the game. The only reason I can think of that they weren't included is so EA could create the idea that this is a live service, so we are going to limit content and then deliver it through steady packages, and then we're going to charge players for it, because it is an absurd grind in order to earn enough coins, which is the regular currency, to get these cosmetics. Or you could purchase them using the premium currency, of course. It just makes no sense to me. There is no customizable options in this game. and it's so limited that most free-to-play games have more options than this. It just screams that Anthem is an MVP, which is the minimum viable product. They just tried and pushed out what they could right now. I get Anthem's been delayed several times, but it just makes no sense. It's only one or two arguments. Either they knew that they couldn't include all the cosmetics because then they won't have enough content to justify the live service, or two, they want to maximize profit by limiting how you can get these cosmetic items and then putting it behind this huge grind or paywall. This also extends to the story. The story opens up great. You're in this incredible battle against powerful creatures in insurmountable odds, and then suddenly you're just dived into this world and you're like, random stories start popping up, like a bartender tells you about his personal problems. What? Why is he telling you this stuff? Another person is telling you about their broken marriage and how her husband happens to be a spy. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But what does that have to do with the main villain? The main villain is called the Monitor, and he's basically trying to control the Anthem, which is basically equivalent to God in this game. It controls all life and everything in this entire existence. So you would assume that everyone would want to stop this guy, because there is a flashback that happens in which the player sees that the Monitor is a very powerful person, and everyone is aware of this, but more people are interested in solving their own personal problems, which I find completely perplexing. Like, if you take a game like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, those minor characters usually have an impact on the story. They determine whether your character is a renegade or a paragon. They determine your character's allegiance. Even some of these characters have indirect ways in which they affect your overall narrative. Here, it's giving you the illusion of choice where you can make choices, but all it does is shift the right, and all the characters act the same. There's no consequence to what you do. It's just the illusion of choice, and I found it incredibly insulting, especially compared to other BioWare titles. It also adds to the frustration when you constantly have to complete these minor objectives in order to pursue the more mainline story objectives. I also noticed that the narrative is very unconnected. Like, in one situation, you go into this stronghold mission. It's one of the first raid missions that you go into, and you are introduced to this character named Sev. You've never heard of him, and for some reason he knows everything about you. It turns out in the end game there's another stronghold mission where you're introduced to Sev. So you see the problem. It's unconnected. It's like someone came in, designed the narrative, and then completely flipped on itself. Like there was some sort of changing of the team during midway of this game, and it shows. There are other issues that people have picked up on in terms of the narrative where I didn't notice this, but there's a handler, one of your first teammates that you actually lose contact with, but suddenly when you're flying through the hub world, she makes contact with you, even though it's supposed to happen later on in the game. I don't understand how that happened, but my only conclusion is that development just shifted over halfway through the game, and they just started adding all this padded things, and like killing specific objectives. Like there's this quest called the Legionnaire's Objective or something like that, where you literally just have to grind through the game in order to get through the story narrative. And the problem with this, I didn't have a problem because I actually did the Stronghold missions like 4 times before going into that mission, so everything was complete, but a lot of players had issue with this, and I can see why they had problems with this. I'm an RPG fan, so I like to over-prepare for a lot of things, so when I see there's something I can grind and collect very powerful weapons, I'll do that 3 or 4 times, so I'm very prepared for anything that's coming against me. But for many players, they just want to go through the story, and when you create that gate, a very hard cement gate, like, it just stops the progress of this game. Ultimately, Anthem is a game that shouldn't have been bad. It should have been great, but it's not, and it's not great because of all these issues that start to mount up. Technical problems that you don't really notice in the beginning start to pile up, like the checkpoints not appearing instantly, you having to go into individual menus in order to switch out your weapons. All these things just add up to very, very vexing problems that players just can't ignore. Maybe Anthem may become a great game. We've seen that with Destiny, we've seen that with For Honor. Heck, we've even seen that with Rainbow Six Siege. If you remember when that game came out, it was a terrible mess. So maybe BioWare can fix this. But right now, it's not worth the price. In fact, I feel like Anthem was oversold as a way to sell EA Origin access. But as a full retail release, it's not. You're better off waiting like 2 or 3 months. This is likely going to be discounted heavily over the course of a few months, because from what I can tell from all the news reports, it's not selling well. It's not even selling as good as the original Destiny, which when it came out was heavily negatively criticized. And here, it just doesn't work well, especially with other game companies doing the live service model much better. Overwatch has a better live service. Monster Hunter World has a superior live service. And so does even Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You don't even have to invest into the season pass, and you can have incredible content for that game. So with so many other developers and publishers creating their own live services that are way better than Anthem, I just don't know what exactly to think of this. And it also adds to the detrimental reputation of BioWare. This was a company that developed Mass Effect, Dragon Age, KOTOR, Jade Empire, who are known as the masters of storytelling. And now, after Mass Effect Andromeda, it just seems like the company is not what it used to be. It's become a hollow shell of what it once was, and now gamers are feeling very disappointed with the company. Hopefully they could turn this around, but as of now, you're probably better off waiting to see if Anthem even becomes something worth even playing, because as of now, it's not.